weird muting thing. This is half the fun of video broadcast. Something has to go a little strangely. My name is Jesse, and welcome to Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, your digital education partner of the Toronto Zoo. For those joining us for the first time on one of these joint broadcasts, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world with over 40 monthly live free virtual programs. And our very favorite partner for that is the Toronto Zoo. You had the chance to check out tigers with us earlier this month. It was one of our most awesome programs ever. We joined with the Chinese Cultural Center of the Greater Toronto Area for a really amazing celebration. You can check that out on our and the Toronto Zoo's YouTube channel. Later this month, we've got wetlands talking about all the special species that the Toronto Zoo helps save. But today, of course, is a very special day, and that is Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day to all of you joining us on our platforms, on the Zoo Facebook, Zoo YouTube, all around the world. Listening to me, I'm a pretty loud guy. You can probably hear from the street as well. We are going to dive in with Zoo Valentine today. And that means we are going to talk about animal companionship, how animals interact with one another. Are they in groups? What's the deal with all that? All sorts of fun things today. And to be our guide through a very fun program, as always, is Mary Ellen joining us from the Africa Pavilion. Mary Ellen, if you want to kick us off and take us away, I'm so excited to dive in with the broadcast. Welcome in.
Hello, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day and welcome to the Toronto Zoo. Before we start our program, we are just going to do a quick land acknowledgement here that Jesse's going to bring up for us. So we'll just take a moment here. So we acknowledge that the land that we are on today is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. I also acknowledge that the Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Williams Treaty signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. Thank you so much for that, Jesse. So without further ado, let's get started on our program. So we are going to learn today about different types of animal relationships, why they live in groups, why they live alone, what's the benefits, what are, some maybe not so good things about it as well. And to start us off, we are going to be learning about our lemur friends here and our pygmy hippos that are just across the way. But we're actually going to roll a quick little video here for us that Jesse has to learn about some of the different dynamics that we see in animal groupings. So Jesse, if you've got that video ready for us here, we'll start ourselves off. Awesome. All right, so the first type of different animal that we're going to learn about is solitary animals, like large cat species. So the example that I have here is our Amur tigers. This is Mazzy. She's our female Amur tiger. We're also going to see a short moment of a clip of Vasily, our male Amur tiger, in a second. And like I said, there's a kind of a scale to animals who are social versus solitary. It's not just one or the other, but large cats and most large predators we see as animals who are solitary. So it means they live by themselves and they only really come together or interact with others of their own species when they're breeding or having a baby. So that's also a type of relationship in animals. And this is the outcome of that here. This is Mila. She's currently our baby Amur tiger. So we have her here at the Toronto Zoo. She's going to be 1 year old in May. And like Jesse was mentioning, we did our last broadcast that we did a couple days ago with Exploring. We actually focused in on tigers for Year of the Tiger. So you can check that out and learn all about her and get a cub update. She's doing wonderful. But she is a kind of offspring of what's called an SSP, so a species survival plan. So it's when two solitary animals or two animals in general are brought together for offsprings. Now, you're going to say immediately when I said large cats, you were like, Mary Ellen, what about lions? They live in a group. Well, science is really fun, and there's a lot of exceptions to every rule. So you'll often notice in broadcasts, I say animals mostly do this, or a lot of them do that. It's a little bit general, I know, but that's because there's always exceptions to the rule, like lions. They are a large cat species, but they live in a giant group together. They're called a pride, is a group of lions. So these are the ones we have at the zoo. This is Fintan, Lemon, and Macaulay. You can see they're very social with each other, giving a nice little grooming session there, cuddling in. They're often together. And another exception that we see at the Toronto Zoo, but not in the wild, is polar bears. So we have two male polar bears, Humphrey and Hudson, who actually live together as well. But polar bears are known to be a solitary species. And the reason that we have ours together is because they are brothers, and when they're in captivity, their competition for food and things like that is kind of taken away. So they don't need to be as stingy with each other about their food. Now onto the social species. We have animals like orangutans and a lot of different primates who are social. We have animals like wolves who live in giant packs together. They kind of range. Some animals will share space all of the time together. Some of them will only come together for certain aspects of their day, like maybe sleeping or eating. It's kind of a range. They don't have to be social all the time. Everybody loves their alone zone. And sometimes you just got to get away from it all and be, on your own with your own thoughts. So animals are the same way. They do love to be together. This is from Poe's first birthday. But they also like their alone time. Except for animals who are eusocial. That might be a new word for some of us out there today. Eusocial animals are a lot of insects like bees and also naked mole rats. And these are animals who work so efficiently together in a group that they essentially are one complete organism all together. If you ever looked up a video of mealworms walking and running around together, they do it on top of each other. It's pretty cool. Now there's other types of relationships, not just the ones that we see between individual species, but we see them between different species. So this is actually mutualism. My wording there came up a second too early. This is commensalism here. So when animals are helping each other out. And then our third one is parasitic, when animals are not really helping each other out. So like ticks and mosquitoes, they are a parasite to us humans. So that's kind of a general overview of the different type of relationships that we see in the animal world. And now we'll bring us back to our live animals here in front of us. So those are the overviews of it, but now we're going to focus in on social versus solitary. So our social animal is our ring-tailed lemurs. So this is a group of animals who usually like to exist in large conspiracies, is their fun name of their grouping. And they're about 2 to 30 members. So there are always at least 2 of them and up to about 30. And they're usually a big family unit all together. So in here, we actually do have 2 different conspiracies of lemurs at the Toronto Zoo. So we have a few of them here in front of us and a couple of them are just over to the side. But we also do have another group and they don't come out together, just like 2 families. They need to be kept separate. They kind of go into their own spaces. They do their own thing. They'll switch out in this exhibit. And we also have, if you've ever come to the Toronto Zoo, you might also see we do have an exhibit down in our Indo-Malaya pavilion where our ring-tailed lemurs also hang out with our animals down there in the summertime. Now, there's definitely some benefits to living in a group together. Some of those benefits are just what we're seeing right now is you can be social with each other. They have each other to lean on. Oftentimes at the zoo, you'll come to see our lemurs and they are all in this tree together having a little cuddle puddle or cuddle party. They love to sleep with each other. They'll wrap their tails around each other and get all nice and cozy. So there's warmth to it and there's safety in numbers for a lot of animals. With all of your friends and family around you, if someone dangerous is coming near, that's that many times eyes and ears and noses that you have working in your favor to detect any danger around you. So you can have lots of friends and family. Not so much for these primates, but for other species, living in a group also means often shared parental care. So it's not just all on the one female to be able to raise her young. They can often switch off between other females or maybe older siblings or both parents in social societies as well. So they're kind of community raised. Now, living in a giant group is not everything. There definitely are some solitary species in the world. And because most things in life, there are pros, but there's also cons. Some of the cons is you have to share everything. So they got food put out for them here for our broadcast. This is their lunchtime snack they were given. But one lemur doesn't get to eat all of that food. They have to split it up between their group. And like most group species as well, there is a hierarchy. So that means one lemur is in charge. For these guys, it's a matriarchal society, which means the females are in charge. And then it goes down the pecking order. So if there's somebody in charge, that means there's also somebody that's least in charge. And they would be getting to the food last and getting the last opportunity in their life throughout their time in their conspiracy. They might move up every now and again, But that kind of dynamic can sometimes add strains or stressors to them as well. Now, I did mention that having so many friends and family around helps you look out for predators, but it can also mean that they might be able to see you more. Maybe your buddy next to you isn't as quiet as you are, and they chirp or talk at the wrong time when a lion is walking by, you know? They could give away your positioning, and then you're all in trouble. So having friends nearby can sometimes be a little bit more of a hindrance than a benefit. Now, before we move on to our solitary species, I was trying to look for, she was around here a moment ago, but she's kind of wandered off, which is surprising because she's quite slow. But we have a tortoise in here as well. There she is. We see her right at the back. She's a little bit hard. She's right back there. There's actually 2 Aldabra tortoises living in this exhibit, and a crowned crane. And people often find it interesting that we have multiple species living in one exhibit. But when you think about it in the wild, there's not really walls between them. So it's actually quite natural for them. And the crane and the tortoise occupy the ground space in this exhibit, whereas the lemurs tend to occupy the above or air space because they're what's called an arboreal species. So really, they don't have that much interaction. Occasionally, though, if you go and check out our Instagram and Facebook page, you will see occasionally that the tortoises get jumped on by the lemurs. And sometimes, you know, the lemurs and the cranes will get into a little stinky fight. But that's about all their interaction. All right, we're going to come around the corner here and check out and compare with our solitary species now. So we're walking through our rainforest pavilion here. It's a very beautiful day here in Toronto. We've got the sun shining in. It's our very natural habitat here. And let's take a look for Harvey. Now we have 3 pygmy hippos here at the zoo. And the one we're going to be meeting today is Mr. Harvey, and he's our male pygmy hippo. And as you can tell, there's only one of him in this exhibit. And that's because they're primarily a solitary species. So just like our Amur tigers, they live alone except for when coming together for breeding. And it looks like Harvey's going to get some lunch here for us as well, which is awesome. He's got some lettuce, some spinach, some carrots. He's a big fan of the healthy leafy greens. He's going to keep growing up nice, big, and strong there for us. So again, now comparing here, all this food was put out for Harvey, just like for the lemurs. But Harvey gets to eat it all on his own. He does not have to share it with anybody. He can eat it now. He can save it for later. The options are all there for him. He also doesn't have to worry about getting his favorite spot. If we look around the exhibit and at his pool that's filling up, he can go anywhere he wants in here. He doesn't have to share that space. So this is great for him because he is solitary, but it also means that when it is time for breeding season, it's a little bit of extra work for him. He has to go out of his way to find another hippo. And what if they don't like each other? He's got to put in all that effort again to go find another one. So living solitary from each other does make breeding season a little bit harder and more interesting for them as well. All right, Jesse, that brings me to the end of my section here. I think we're going to pass it on over to Todd to talk to us a little bit, and we'll stay here with Harvey and hang out with him for a little bit.
Fantastic. I must say the weather in Toronto looks very nice. We're all just like warming our hands in your gorgeous tropical pavilion there. But yes, let's head to check out with our special guest. Todd, thank you so much for being here with us today, and excited to dive in with your presentation about social animals as well.
Yes, thank you. Very happy to be here. My name is Todd Thiel. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Toronto, Scarborough. I saw a classroom from Freehold, New Jersey. I grew up 10 minutes away from there, so
Cool.
I want to say hi and give a shout out to that class, but also a hello to everyone on this special event here on Valentine's Day.
Yeah, as you're bringing up your presentation here, I'll just note we've got groups in Calgary, in India, Connecticut, Alberta, BC. I mean, it's all over the world. I mean, the India is, I think, our furthest today, but it's a really exciting, diverse audience for you, and I'm excited to dive in.
Well, I'll have something special for India, so just hold on. So as we just heard, animals live in a variety of different social structures. And today I'll be talking to you about fish, which is my expertise. I study fish biology here at the University of Toronto. And so because it is Valentine's Day, we want to understand why fish live alone or why they live in large schools. So here we see this beautiful picture of fish schooling together in large groups. And we'll have a video next to show you some really dynamic schooling in ocean fishes. And so let's play this. So you can see these beautiful displays. We have thousands of fish here moving in synchrony. And we believe that there's a variety of advantages for fish to live in these schools. And I'll go over those in detail on the next slide. But you can see these rapid changes in direction. And the fish are able to keep in close proximity with one another. And we believe they do this using a combination of different senses. And some of those senses include vision, so they're using their eyes, as well as something called the lateral line. So this is a sensing organ in the fish that allows them to feel vibrations. And so, although it's not entirely clear to scientists, we believe they use a little bit of both of these senses to form these tight packs in which they travel. Now, as I said, we think they use their eyes as well as vibrations to keep them tightly choreographed to produce these really beautiful displays of behavior. Now, why do fish swim in schools? So we have a few what we call functional reasons. It's difficult to go in and really probe exactly why they school, but there's certainly some obvious things that can help them. And we'll look at the mechanisms of schooling a little bit later in this talk. So for one reason, we think is that it's easier to swim. When you're in a big group like this, there's hydrodynamic advantages. So it allows them to swim through the water more easily. You could think of it as you have this big body of fish moving rapidly. So a fish that's on the edge takes advantage of the hydrodynamics of the entire group so that the force it has to exert is less. Now, fish travel for thousands and thousands of miles as they migrate, and so they take advantage of this ease of swimming to conserve energy. It's also thought to be easier for them to find food. So as you saw in the video, the fish make rapid turns left or right as an individual identifies a prey object somewhere in its vicinity. So let's say this fish here saw prey off to the side. It would dart towards the prey, and all of the fish in the school, or at least in part of that school, would turn with the fish. So it's basically having many eyes to look at the surroundings to look for prey. Also, it is important for mating, right? So you want to have fish close together. Therefore, there's a better opportunity to find a mate, and also find a mate that is particularly healthy. There is some thought that you could find unhealthy fish towards the edges of a school. And this is something that has an evolutionary advantage because they can get picked off more easily by predators, which we'll talk about shortly here. So mating is definitely something that is advantageous for fish when they're in a school. Lastly, it is thought that it's easier not to get eaten when you're in a school. So here we have a shark. Here we have a school of smaller fish. It is thought that it's harder for the shark to identify an individual prey fish when there is a large congregation of dense fish together. The fish can also, like when I said before, they can find prey, things they want to eat more easily. If a fish identifies a predator, it will swim away quickly, causing the entire school to follow, because fish will want to follow the others away from the prey. The predator, in this case, the shark. Now, my lab studies a fish called a zebrafish. So this is a really blown up picture of a zebrafish. They're about an inch long. These are fish that are very important for studying biology in the lab environment. They are native to India as well as Bangladesh, and they are used to study a variety of biological problems. People try to study cancer using zebrafish. My lab studies the brain using zebrafish. Their genetics are very, very similar to humans. They share approximately 80% of their genes with humans. So we are really not that far off from a fish when it comes down to their genome, the collection of genes, as well as their organs. And their brain, which is our specialty, has many, many, many similarities. So when people tell you that fish aren't smart, you can disagree with them. They can actually do a wide variety of very complex behaviors. So what does it look like in the lab? So here we study in my lab primarily baby zebrafish. So here's a side view of a baby zebrafish, and here's a top view. So you can see these big black eyes. These are the pectoral fins, and here's its tail. And here's from the side view. Here's the big eye. Here's its mouth. Here's something called a swim bladder, which helps it stay buoyant. Now, these guys are about 5 millimeters long, and that's roughly the size of an ant. And here's a picture showing a bunch of larval zebrafish. And one interesting thing is that these baby zebrafish are solitary. So they try to maximize the distance between one another. And we think that this is because they want to forage for food most effectively. They want to be away from their neighbors and try to take advantage of the food in their area. There's also probably some advantages for not getting eaten when you're this size. So it's a bit opposite to the larger fish that I talked about before that have advantages to avoid predators when they're in a school. Here, these fish are so small, a predator, if they were schooling, could come up and eat all of them at once with a big mouth. So these are solitary. Now, when they become about 3 weeks of age or 21 days old, they start to show social behaviors. They start to aggregate together. Now, in the lab, we of course have adult zebrafish. Primarily, we mate them to produce these little guys that we study in detail. But we know that the adult zebrafish show social behaviors in the lab. So here's about 15 adult zebrafish in a tank, and we see them aggregating together. So we wanted to understand how zebrafish behave in the wild. So when we look in the lab, it's very artificial. This is not where they evolved to live. So myself and some students and some collaborators, just before the pandemic in 2019, we had good timing. We went to India, and this is the home of zebrafish, and we went to northeastern India near the country of Bhutan to do field studies of zebrafish in the wild. And what we found were zebrafish schooling. So you're going to see a bunch of zebrafish swim very quickly in this small, very shallow stream. They're going to move from the right to the left, and I'll play this twice. So you see them darting along in a school. So the definition of a school is fish that are together in close proximity, moving in the same direction. Okay, so these fish are all moving in the same direction, moving to another location in the stream, and moving at a fairly rapid pace. So this type of schooling is a little different. It's not quite as tight as these balls of fish that I showed in the beginning, but every species has their own sort of specialization in how they school. Now, we also saw adult zebrafish doing something called shoaling. Now, shoaling is different from schooling in that the fish are together, but they are not moving in the same direction. They're together, they're doing some foraging, they're looking for prey, they're also potentially mating. So this video is going to show you zebrafish near the shore of a stream. And they're a little hard to see because they're quite well camouflaged, but you can see them darting around. And so they're eating food, they're looking for food, but also near these shores is where we believe they mate in the wild. But there is a lot to be learned still about how zebrafish exploit their environment and a lot of the behaviors they perform in the environment. And so this was the first of what we hope will be many trips to India to try to understand how zebrafish, live in the wild. Now, how do they shoal? So my former advisor, my postdoc advisor in the lab where I was at before I moved to Toronto, they've been studying what are some of the mechanisms by which fish shoal. So here you're going to see 3 21-day-old fish, and they clearly like to be together. They're going to follow each other and interact. But what is the fundamental cue to the fish that makes them do this? So this group played a big black spot, not very big, about the size of a zebrafish, and they wanted to see, will the zebrafish follow this black dot? And they did this for a lot of young fish at a time. So they played these moving dots, and they used a sophisticated virtual reality system where they had the dot follow the fish no matter where the fish was. And what they found is that fish like dots that move like other fish. So they move in steps, whereas dots that just move continuously, they found were not attractive. So thus, what is attractive is something that is moving similar to how they swim in a series of spurts of swimming and then pauses. So this was very interesting. We now know what the visual stimulus is that is being attractive to these young zebrafish. So now what we do in the lab, so we study the brain in great detail. So we know that they can use their eyes to do this shoaling behavior, but how does their brain do this? So here's a picture of the head of this larval zebrafish. These are the eyes right here. Now the brain is right where I'm outlining with my cursor, okay? That's where the brain is. Now the brain contains about 100,000 cells, and these are specialized cells called neurons that make up your brain. Now these cells are special in that they pass information to one another, and they live in these dense networks where they communicate and they pass information. They can pass sensory information from the eye, and this information can then go to other specialized area in the brain that will say, "Ooh, I've noticed something that looks like a fish." And then that information can be passed down to areas of the brain that then tell the fish, you should turn right, you should go straight, you should turn left, whatever is needed to stay close to that fish. So this is an incredibly important and exciting field called neuroscience. And the fish is a wonderful system to study this in because it has, even though this is a big number, 100,000, it's far less than our brain, which is up to 86 billion neurons. So let me show you a movie through the fish's brain. So we're going to take a dive all the way through the fish brain, and I will play it through once completely and then give you another tour. We're going to play it twice. These are the eyes. Now, all these little circles that you can see, those are all individual neurons. And this big area here in the middle of their brain is called the optic tectum. And this is where all of the information from their eyes goes to, and it is then processed by this brain area to identify conspecifics, which is another fancy way of saying another fish of their species. So what my lab is trying to do is to examine how this brain does that task. And it's very complicated because there's lots of neurons and these brains are quite small. But all of these brain areas that you're seeing here, we have in our brain as well. They're just bigger, they just have more neurons, but the overall structure is exactly the same. So now my homework, and my homework every day is to understand how these 100,000 neurons that are all interconnected are doing the computations that allow these fish to perform these beautiful and sophisticated behaviors, such as shoaling and schooling. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Todd. And again, what a neat sort of linkage of the science behind all this with some of the stuff we learned earlier at the zoo. If you want to exit screen share, come see us again, have a bit of a conversation. I'll bring back our Toronto Zoo team. Mary Ellen, is there any last messages from the zoo before we dive in with question and answer today with all our classes?
Sure, we can just add in here for Harvey here. Now that he's in the water, it's really cool to see him interact between his different levels of his environment. And one of the things that I forgot to mention that's a little bit of a con for living solitary is since he's the only one in his space, he does get it all, but that also means he's the only one here to protect it. We're trying to find, he might have swam right underneath of us here for a second. So he has to do a lot of his day is going about and kind of marking his territory. And I will tell you that if you ever come to the Toronto Zoo, you always got to keep your eyes peeled when you are at the hippo exhibits, river and pygmy, because they mark their territory by pooing, wiping their tail in it, and then shaking their tail from left to right. So you always got to keep a careful eye on them, or you might get covered in a not so fun surprise.
A unique way of ending a broadcast with us, Mary Ellen. Thank you for that.
Exactly. Always got to keep it fun.
It was very different than our last one. Guys, we're going to dive in with questions. We got a whole bunch of live groups with us from across North America. We've got groups joining us on YouTube, Facebook, from all our channels. All sorts of questions pouring in already for Todd and for Mary Ellen, which is great. But we're going to start live in Sarnia with Miss Short's class, grade 8. So you guys can kick us off with a question. We'll go through our live groups, take some from as many places as we can, and we got 15 minutes or so for all that. So keep those questions coming, and I'm excited to hear from all of you. Miss Short's class, grade 8, welcome in, guys. Feel free to unmute your mic and come on up if you have any queries for us.
Okay, just give us 1 second.
Take your time. Hi. But do unmute your mic. Oh, there you go. Everyone, all our teachers live, you can keep your mics unmuted. Makes it way easier when we go to Q&A. There we go.
Okay. Sorry, we have a question. All right, go for it. Georgia, come on up over here so we can hear you. All right, go for it, Georgia.
How do you find out if an animal's solitary or do you find out the hard way, or do you know before you have it?
Yeah, so Mary Ellen, that's for you at the zoo. How do you find out if they're solitary or if they live in groups or not?
That is a great question, and that kind of also plays into a lot of what Todd was talking about the research that we do in animals beforehand. So I can definitely probably say that at the very beginning of time when we are noticing animals, it was probably a lot of trial and error, and to also figure out their reproductive patterns and their cycles, because some animals will be solitary for some parts of the year, some at other times. So it was definitely hit and miss for a little bit, but because of individuals like Todd and everyone at UTSC and at the Toronto Zoo collaboratively working, we're able to study animals in captivity and in the wild and then learn a lot more about them so that we can properly equip them here at the zoo in a captive setting to mimic their natural environment and give them that opportunity to mimic their relationships in the wild. So we definitely know a lot more now, and we are prepared for a new animal when they come in.
Perfect. Thanks, Mary Ellen. Our next question is for Todd coming in on YouTube, and I'm going to go to Miss Northrup next live. So we've been getting a lot of questions about why are fish groups called schools. Todd, is there a reason for this or anything
That is a fantastic question, which I actually do not have a good answer for. I don't know the history of why they are called schools. I will have to look into that.
You know what? You've got these great biology and evolution books behind you. So as we're doing the questions, you can randomly flipping. Actually, a quick follow-up.
I mean, why is school called school?
We'll put the question right back to our classes. A quick follow-up on that you might be able to know the answer to. How many fish makes a school? Is it 1? Is it 2? Do you need 25 fish? Is there a benchmark?
It really depends. For us, we will say, so I talked about shoaling, which is schooling, but without a clear direction that everyone's going. It's a congregation of fish. In the lab, we will say that 2 fish can shoal. If those 2 fish are staying together in a very clear manner, we will say that they are shoaling. So with bigger ocean fish, you tend to see them in schools of thousands. And so it kind of depends on who you talk to and what they study. A fisherman out in the ocean will say, oh, a school of fish, that should have thousands of fish. Whereas my perspective from a lab, I'll say, oh, you could have 2 fish. As long as it's 2 together, that's fair.
There are no fishermen in this broadcast. So for the purposes of these classrooms, you win. There's no one to fight you on it. We're going to leave you to figure out why a school is called a school, but the next time I come to you, I will head to Baldwinsville, New York for Miss Northrup's class. If you guys want to unmute your mic and come on in. Hey, New York, welcome in.
All right, we have a question. Come on.
Hi, guys.
Why are fish solitary and unsolitary?
Ooh, okay, Todd, back to you. Why are fish solitary or unsolitary? Like, is there a reason certain fish are stay together?
Well, like Mary Ellen said, and something I wanted to touch on after I talked, and I realized I didn't. It is a size thing, also. So if you have smaller fish, you tend to see them. And 10, there's always exceptions to these rules, but great white sharks, they are solitary. Okay, they are like the tiger. They are out. They will come together to mate. They'll go to mating grounds and they'll have their mating periods. Off of Cape Cod now that people are realizing in Massachusetts, there's lots of mating grounds for great white sharks. But they will go off and be primarily solitary as they're hunting and feeding. So it kind of goes with the size scale, like Marianne said, for land animals.
Yeah. Very cool. Thanks, Todd. All right. Let's head to Ms. Nielsen's class, our group in for Old New Jersey. 3rd graders, unmute your mic and you're good to go to come on up. Hey.
All right. I have Miss Sophia has a question.
Hi, Miss Sophia.
What is another animal that at the zoo that lives alone?
Yeah. So, Mary Ellen, what animal at the zoo lives alone? What do we think?
There we go. I got one for you right here. We are on a lemur excursion there, trying to find where they've jumped off to. But I would like to introduce you to my best buddy here. This is Dottie, and Dottie is what I like to affectionately call a sea pancake. But truthfully, he is a Nile softshell turtle. So he is solitary here right now in his exhibit. That is him right there, the rock-looking thing right there. That's Dottie. So it's not as maybe interesting to see him. He is really cool. The best way to tell if you come to the zoo, we try really hard to make sure that if animals are social, they have others of their own species with them. We really try hard to mimic their natural environments. So if they are known to be a social species, we will have them paired up with a buddy of their own, or at a very least another species that they get along with or can cohabit with. And if you see an animal all by their lonesome, it typically means that they are a solitary species. Like Dottie here, he's hanging out near his heat lamp. He is a reptile, so he's probably trying to warm up. Even though it's warm in here, in this beautiful greenhouse that we've got going on, it's quite cold out here in Toronto today.
Like, for our American friends in the southern U.S. and our Indian colleagues joining us around the world, very, very cold. Like -20 cold, too cold actually, where your breath shivers immediately. Yeah. Guys, let's head back or to one of our classes, Ottawa Adventist School, Miss Hudson's class. If you want to unmute your mic, again, all our live teachers, keep your mics unmuted. It makes Q&A way faster. Welcome in, Ottawa Adventist. Take us away.
Thank you. Speak nice and loud. What's the question?
Do they obey do the fish obey to the other fish when there's a problem?
Oh, do they listen to them? Do they follow them?
Yes.
Yeah. Todd, let's bring everybody in for that one.
Sure.
Dude. Yeah.
I found one answer from before I take this one.
Okay.
School is the old meaning of school. It comes from the Dutch word schola, which means crowd.
There you go. Very simple. Way to go.
Thank you for asking the question. I learned something very good today. Very important.
Yeah. And so for the fish, do they follow the other fish? Do they listen to other fish in other ways, or do they have nothing? Do they not care what other groups of animals are doing whatsoever?
Well, the fish want to, if they see their prey, they will go towards the prey, whatever they want to eat. The smaller fish typically. They want to, if they see predators, they want to go away. So they have this approach or avoidance depending on if it's going to eat you or you want to eat it. But in terms of social interactions with other fish, there are these relationships, like Mary Ellen talked about, where you can have parasitic interactions, as well as interactions that are beneficial for both. So on sharks, you'll often see other fish that hitch a ride on the shark, but those fish can also eat things on the shark, kind of clean the shark at the same time. So it's a benefit for both.
Yeah, a lot of those fish, I'll put you in the background as we dive in with some more questions, are called remoras. They're just some of the coolest things in the ocean. I love when we talk about commensal relationships. There was a picture of one of those in Mary Ellen's video at the beginning of this broadcast. Now, we are at the 41-minute mark. We are going to stay a little long today because we're rebels together and we just love animals. But I want to note for any class that doesn't get their questions answered, we've already had 50-plus questions on YouTube and Facebook, which is great. We are going to have a Padlet available. So for those who join us for the Tiger program, you'll be familiar with this. A Padlet is a virtual whiteboard. So after this broadcast, if you want to go to the link below, type in your questions for Todd or the zoo, they'll be able to answer those over the next 2 days. So feel free to check that out. I will bring that up at the end of the broadcast as well. Now let's head to our Good Shepherd School, Miss Benoit's class in Courtice, Ontario, and then we'll take them from YouTube. Hey, guys.
Hi.
You are good to go, yeah.
How old is the pygmy hippo?
How old is the pygmy hippo, Mary Ellen?
I love that. I'm sorry that I don't have Harvey in front of us. This is a crowned crane. I hope they can do for our kind of substitute right now. Harvey was having a nap there in the water. So Harvey himself, he's a little bit on the older side. We're actually quite close in age. He was born December 20th, 1994. So he is going to be 28, I believe, this year.
Yeah, making me feel old, Mary Ellen. Thank you so much for that. By the way, I want to note, shameless plug here, I think all of us have a favorite animal in the world. My favorite bird by far is the one that Mary Ellen is currently with right now. They live in East Africa. They are a really, really special animal. So if you get a chance to check out crowned cranes, what an incredible creature. And thank you so much for getting to. I've actually never been that close to one at the zoo. We luck out in these broadcasts so well, getting like the most amazing animals coming right up. Awesome, guys. Okay, I'm going to take a couple from YouTube. Miss Moranto's class will come to you guys next live. Let's see some of our questions pouring in from our viewers online. Let's see. Wow, there's so many. Oh, do piranhas swim in schools? So I guess Todd and Mary Ellen, both of you might have an answer for this. Piranhas?
Yes.
Yes. we have piranhas here. If you come to the zoo, they live in our Americas pavilion, and I can concur. They are we have red-bellied piranhas, I believe. They do swim in a school together.
Yeah.
And
Todd, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, and I would say, yeah, it's one school you definitely want to avoid.
Yeah.
I will note in this front, so I used to be at Ripley's Aquarium of Canada. There's a whole whack of piranhas, and of all the tanks when the divers went in to clean the tanks, the scariest fish in the entire aquarium are the piranhas that would literally huddle and shake in the corner of their tank away from the person. Sharks don't care, nothing else cares. The piranhas were absolutely terrified of people. So a little bit of reputation busting while we're here together today. So, Miss Kirk's class, another Ottawa group today. So many Ottawa groups today, which is awesome. Mary Ellen, they want to know how many animals are at the zoo to study. Like how many groups of, or how many different kinds of creatures do you have there?
Oh, that's a great question. So the number does vary all the time based on animals. We do trade animals with other accredited facilities all over the world as part of that program I was mentioning, the SSP, so the Species Survival Plans. So our animals are on the move every once in a while. But on average, we have about 4,000 to 5,000 individual animals, and that spans between about 350 to 400 different species of animals. So, for example, I believe we've shown it off in a broadcast before, Jesse. If not, I encourage you to check it out. We have a tank in this building that's called the Lake Malawi tank, or the Darwin's Dream Pool. It's an amazing, amazing fish tank. It's one of my favorites. There's close to 1,000 individual fish living in it at any one time. So that accounts for a good portion of our individual animals, but they're all one species collectively.
Yeah. I know we've got a lot of New Yorkers and Ontarians today, so you guys are used to the Great Lakes of North America. Africa has 3 amazing Great Lakes in the eastern side of it, right around the middle, and just some of the most amazingly diverse, beautiful fish in the world live there. They're in that tank. We have featured it on the broadcast before, so if you want to look up, it wasn't based on them though. It's like, look up fish in Toronto Zoo on our YouTube channel, and you should find it with that, or Africa's Pavilion. I think it was in that general program about the whole pavilion.
Yeah.
Really encourage people to check that out. We're going to go to one last live class, take one more YouTube question, and wrap up from there. So Miss Miranda's class joining us in that aforementioned New York. If you guys want to unmute your mic, you are good to go. And hi, grade 2s, welcome in. If we can't get your mic unmuted, you did share your question in the chat, but I want to see if we can hear you guys live. Oh, you got 2 devices. Let's see. Hi. Maybe kind of, sort of. While we're waiting, you know what? You're on camera. They wanted to know, why do fish mate? Oh, here we go, Miss Miranto.
Okay, how do you hear us now?
Oh, with the second device, you're going to reverb. So I'm going to keep you guys. There we go. Hi.
Why do fish mate?
Why do fish mate? What's our answer? Todd, Mary Ellen, you can both be in for this.
So fish mate because they want to produce the baby fish. So the male and the female fish come together, they mate, and the female lays eggs, and then that egg gets fertilized, and then you get baby fish. So it's to keep their family growing.
Yep, same reason that all other animals mate. There are a few creatures that can sort of just butt off and create a new version of themselves, but other than those very, very select things, we end up with things needing to mate. And again, part of our Valentine's Day program today. Now, we'll take 2 more questions. Again, we're going to be rebels together, which is great. I love this question from Miss Gale. You totally brought this on yourself, Mary Ellen. She wants to know, is it obvious when a hippo is pooping and about to shake it around?
Oh, I did bring that one on myself. It can be pretty obvious, I will say. If you're looking at the hippos, they don't make a grunting sound or an alarm sound beforehand, unfortunately. That would be just too convenient for all of us. The best thing to do is, while you're watching them, if you see them go to the bathroom, maybe take a step back. They do it up against a wall. So I know this isn't the hippo exhibit here, but they will poop on the wall with their bum up against it, and that's how they get it on their tail. So if you see that happening, definitely take a step back.
You came for the Valentine's Day program. You stayed for the hippo stuff.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much. I want to just highlight how people can learn more about the amazing work you guys are doing. So, Mary Ellen, we'll start with you. Is there a way that people can learn more about what the zoo's doing virtually, in person, all sorts of good stuff that you guys have going on at such an amazing place?
Oh, I love that question, as you know, Jesse. Here, I'm going to switch the camera back onto myself here for a second to finish off our program. I'll come down with our buddy here. There are so many ways to connect with the Toronto Zoo. You can follow us on all of our social medias. If you want to see more programs like this, check us out. Jesse and I do a video together every month during the school year season. We have so many that we've already done with Jesse and Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants as well. So check them out. But also, if you head over to the Toronto Zoo Zoo to You page, under Things to Do, you can book a tour of an area of the pavilion or area of the zoo with me, or get a one-on-one with just an individual animal, learn all about them. There's so many great ways to connect with us right now, as well as we just reopened a few days ago to the public. So we're very excited to be welcoming everybody back into the zoo. So if you live nearby, I encourage you to come on by and say hi to our friends.
Well, again, we've got an audience from all around the world today, so it's so nice to be able to do these virtual programs so we can reach people in Dartmouth and India and Poland and all across Canada and the US like we've had the chance to do today. But for those who have the chance, the Toronto Zoo is a place that I grew up going to all the time. It's a really special facility. They've got amazing people like Mary Ellen and all the team that we've had that chance to feature there, and crown cranes that just hang out in the background of your shot and make it that much extra special. Todd, is there a way that people can learn more about the amazing work you guys are doing at UTSC on research and more?
You can just Google my name, TODTHIELE, and you will, and UTSC or University of Toronto, and you'll find my lab. You can also go to theolab.ca, and we have a lot of cool videos and images about what we do. I can put that in the chat, and then
I've got it up on screen. I can beat you to it. Guys, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for this joint broadcast. It's so exciting to get to highlight research and the amazing work that you're doing at the zoo jointly. I really do encourage people to share more questions with our Padlet today. So if you want to head to Padlet.com, our initials at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants /Valentines, share your questions there. We'll take them over days to come. Until then, Mary Ellen, you were used to this. Todd, it's your first time. So what we do to wrap up every broadcast, Miss Short, Miss Northrop, Miss Nielsen, Miss Miranda, Ottawa Adventist, and Good Shepherd. We're going to bring you guys into the broadcast to join me in saying a big thank you and farewell. You are all in. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, you can too. Bye, everybody.